Good morning, afternoon, evening, whenever you see this. This is Dee with INF Probably Insights. Today we're going to be talking about, have a special request, and we'll be talking about the paradoxical INFP in more depth. This was a special request that was left in the comments section. Please do that. If you have any ideas, leave it in the comments section. I will get to it and I will talk about it. Or feel free to write me at olderinfp@gmail with your ideas. But the comment wasn't about being paradoxical. It was about wanting to know my take on having two different people, feeling like they have two different people inside them fighting with each other. So I said, well, that sounds paradoxical. INFPs are known for that. I think that's superficial, and something else a little bit deeper just came to me while I was watching some people hike on TV. I love to watch the thru hikers. That's an aside, but I do love to watch thru hikers. So that's what I'm doing, and I'm doing virtual hiking. So what I mean by paradoxical, what INFPs we come across as, I'll just give you a couple of examples. We're not always like we seem to be, and we surprise people, and sometimes we surprise ourselves. And that can be one type of fight, a superficial, I think, type of fight. One way is we come across as being very laid back, very easygoing, chill, whatever happens. I mean, one of my favorite saying is, "It is what it is." I had a friend one time, the one I traveled with. She would get all upset sometimes about things, and I'm just like, it is what it is. So yeah, we do have that reputation. We do have that part of us. For the most part, that is the way we are. But you get on our wrong side, we do have explosive anger. We do door slam, and when we do that, we surprise other people, or when we speak up for ourselves to set boundaries, we surprise other people. They're like, "Oh gosh, what happened to you? I didn't know that was that way." We surprise ourselves a whole lot of the time. Another way that we're paradoxical is that through intelligence or lack thereof, there's a stereotype that because we are laid back, because we are quiet for the most part, because we are, you can use the word shy for the most part, and we keep to ourselves, that equates, at least in the States, that will equate to laziness, which equates to being dumb. So what will happen is we are perceived a lot of times as not being very intelligent or not very educated. I know where I live, and I live in senior apartments. One lady was talking to me 2 or 3 years ago. We've known each other for 6 years now. But 2 or 3 years ago we were talking. She rarely talks to me because I think she thinks she's better than me. She was a school teacher. Okay, so I can match resumes. We got into a little conversation, and she just looked at me and she said, "Oh, you mean you went to college?" And it never occurred to me that she didn't think I went to college. I thought, oh, she thinks I'm dumb. So those things will come out. We will say prophetic things once in a while when we do talk. Whether we talk or whether we put it in writing, I know for myself and a lot of other introverts, writing is our best form of communication. And we're very good writers. And people will come up and say, "Oh gosh, you came up with that? How did you come up with that?" And even my former INFJ friend that I talk about all the time, when we used to talk, when we first started talking, and we only talked to emails, but we had very in-depth conversations, and then she had a quandary about something. I don't know, this was like 4 years ago. And she had a quandary about something, and I gave her some ideas, and then she just wrote back and she's like, oh my gosh, I never thought about that. So we do kind of surprise people. So there's that paradox, like, well, I thought you were dumb, or I thought you were uneducated, and I've got a southern accent, so I can't be smart, for me particularly. And then, yeah, I am. So anyway, and we all are, all INFPs, we all are, but we just keep it to ourselves, and we're not snobby in that way. So I've already spent half my time here talking about that. So that is how we can fight with each other and seem like we are fighting ourselves, is that we do surprise ourselves sometimes. Parts of ourselves come out that we didn't know we had in there, whether it be anger or whether it be intelligence or whether it be motivation or whether it be creativity or whatever it is, something will come out. Which leads me to my deeper and more in-depth and new idea and thought of why we fight within ourselves. And that is beyond the paradox part, the superficial, what I would consider superficial, is it's our INFP trying to come out. Now, some of you, and I've met some of you online, I feel like the INFP creators who talk about INFP or don't talk about INFP, but the ones I know that are INFP creators, I just feel like they're all friends, even though we don't hang out. It's just kind of a like, yeah, I can relate to that. But there are a few that have come out and said that when they were growing up, that they could be themselves. And that's fine. That takes a whole lot of support to do that, and I really am happy and glad for that. But I think the majority of us probably weren't as fortunate and aren't as fortunate because we don't live in a feeling world. People say we live in an ESTJ world. I don't know. We can live in their 16 type personality types by Myers-Briggs. All types of personality types. Then you've got the Enneagram types, and you've got the Zodiac types, then you've got all kinds of types that you can be. So most of us who are INFPs, it's my speculation, most of us that are INFPs grow up in a world that is not that supportive and is totally different in whatever kind of personality type that may be. Personally, I grew up around a ton of introverts, but a ton of sensory SJs. So that didn't work out. But we have our INFP. I remember. So we have to adjust, and we are adaptable. INFPs are probably the most adaptable personality types. We're not like INFJ or chameleons. They fit in with their surroundings. They change who they are according to their surroundings. That's the chameleon part. That's neither here nor there, other than I'm saying we're adaptable. We're not like adaptability and chameleon are two different things. What we do is that we keep our core values, and we know what our core values are, but we kind of stuff them down and go with the flow. That's our go with the flowness to get along, which is a survival technique. I think, they say if the world were to go away today, that roaches would survive because of whatever scientific data. I think roaches would survive, and I think INFPs would survive. We would be here when the world's gone. There'll be an INFP here because we are so adaptable to our surroundings. But that is a survival technique, and that's something I think we do subconsciously. I don't think we consciously set out to do that. because if we don't survive, we're not around anymore, right? So we have to survive. So where am I going and what am I getting at with this? So what happens is you stuff down who you are as an INFP. You stuff down the feelings. You stuff down the core values. It's like yesterday I was talking to a group of neighbors, and one asked me, got into politics, and one asked me about one political figure that I won't get into. I don't like to talk about politics around other people because it comes off as being really weird sometimes, and I'm a very opinionated. That is core. That is to my core, and I can be opinionated and turn people off, and and I don't think it's worth it. I'll keep my opinions to myself and use them in other formats, but as far as politics goes, because it's not that important to me to speak out every time I turn around to somebody, if that makes sense. But I did, and I was opinionated, because right now I don't care. But growing up, I learned to stuff who I was. I learned to stuff my feelings. I had no feelings. I said in the podcast interview I did with Brendan at Sight Casserole, that one, that I don't cry. I have cries within myself, have a cry coming, but I just don't cry because it wasn't acceptable where I grew up. I would not have survived if I had kept crying, I can tell you. So you learn to adapt, you learn to stuff down who you are to get along with the outside world. Now, so I think when INFPs struggle with themselves or they fight with themselves, I think the two people in that is going to be the part of you that's the outside world surviving, whichever personality type that is, and however that is. And then the second one is deep down in there is the INFP knocking at your door to come out. It wants to come out. The older you get and the longer you stuff it down, the louder the INFP gets. Say that again. The longer you stuff down who you are as an INFP, the louder, and the older you get, the louder that INFP voice gets, which causes more conflict within you. There's that struggle, and you're not really conscious of it. Now, I will say that when I got divorced in my mid-30s, which I think in my age group and maybe the generation, I'm seeing it now in the generation. What is the generation, Bill? We're boomers, and then you have Gen X. Is that the next? Is that the next alphabet? Everything's in the alphabet. I think Gen X. I'm seeing it now in the Gen X. They're having kind of marital kind of things. I think that's a common age range to get divorced or have separate or have marital discord. But I was 35 when I got divorced. I went into therapy, and I thought I always wanted to go into therapy and find out, unscrew all this stuff that's been screwed into me, unscrew myself up. I knew I was screwed up. This was well before my mental health days, professional days, well before any of this. I was a stay-at-home mom. You've seen that video, hopefully. I was stay-at-home mom of three, raised three as a single mom. I wanted to get unscrewed. I wanted to get these fights within me out. Because there were times in my life growing up when I wanted to help people and I didn't. And the inside of me wanted to really, really help someone in need, even on an emergent level. Somebody was hurt, I would freeze. I would freeze. I would not go and help them, even though I truly wanted to. So I wanted to get unscrewed up. So when I got into therapy, my therapist told me that she was going to teach me and show me, or whatever, probably through CBT therapy, I don't know. But she was going to teach me how to get along with the world. I could keep my uniqueness. And what she told me was, everybody's unique, but Dee, you are the most unique person I have ever seen. And she didn't say that in a complimentary way. I didn't take that in a complimentary way. I do now. I'm an INFP and I am daggone proud of it, and this is who I am. But back then it was like, you can still be unique, but you got to tone it down. You got to be able to get along in the world. So I did that. And I spent lots of money. Well, my insurance company did. We spent lots of money on all this. Lots of time. I think it was like a year or two did this. And I will tell you, I got along really well with the world, had tons of friends. I was able to work part-time. Everything was hunky-dory on the outside, but I was totally miserable on the inside. Totally miserable on the inside. There was this fight. There was who I was on the outside, then there was this INFP knocking on my heart, knocking on the door, knocking everywhere to say, I got to come out. I've got to come out. So that didn't work. I thought, you know what? Yeah, the world likes me, but I don't like myself. I've got to not like myself in order to be acceptable in the world. Screw that. Screw that. So I think that's what that's all about. And it took a long time to get to this point. I mean, that was when I was 35. It started coming out, and when I went to grad school at 40, and I was in social work school, grad school, and what they do is they try to get you to work on your own problems first, which is what you need to do. If you're going to work with other people, you need to fix your own self. But then I didn't want to do that. So I was coming out more. And it took, and now I'm in my 70s, it has taken up until a couple of years ago, when I started this channel, of really not caring. And even though I didn't care, I cared a little bit. Still have my feelings hurt. But now I'm really growing into who I am. I am not afraid to show. I'm not afraid to act. I will tell you, in my social work career, most of my social work career was in crisis intervention work, which I love to do. I love, because I wanted to challenge myself to be able to get out there and act whenever somebody needed help, to learn to act. So I used my profession. I used the jobs I had. I didn't have jobs for very long because I kept trying to challenge myself in different areas, and I deliberately did that. I remember I took a job in HIV in the 90s, and because that was my biggest hang-up, was to work with someone with HIV or be around anybody with HIV, because back then we didn't know a whole lot. I didn't have all the medications that they had, and people were still passing away. So I got a job as an HIV case manager. I case managed 90 people with HIV. I did that on purpose to challenge myself to get over the fear and the hang-up. Let my INFP, I didn't know it was INFP, but to let my inner self that kept knocking very hard and fighting with my outside self, I wanted to overcome the outside self and become my inside self, which was the INFP. This happened the other day. I'll just give an example. It happened the other day down the hall where I live. There's an elderly couple that I sensed, and I found out talking later from their daughter, that they both have dementia. They're, I would say, in their 80s. The woman fell. She couldn't get up. The husband yelled, help, help, help. Some of the neighbors tried to help, and I stepped in. I could have just stayed my normal self and fighting with myself and just said, I'm going to stay here at home. I'm watching TV and I'm going to ignore it, wishing I had helped like I did when I was a kid and younger. But no, I went out there. And I actually not only went out there, I took charge. Told people to leave her alone. We need to call 911 to get her up. Don't touch her. Don't try to get her up. Everybody kind of left, went away, did their own business. The couple, I asked them, they were getting irritable. They were starting to cuss with each other, fight verbally with each other. So I knew that about me, and I knew that about INFPs. I knew that about me, that I could be the calm in the storm. That's one thing we can use our calmness for good and calm in the storm. I've had a career in crisis intervention, so I asked them if it would be okay if I stayed with them until EMS got there. And they said yes. So all I did was stand there as being calm, and remind them once in a while, and don't try to get up, don't try to help her for the couple. Took a half an hour for EMS to get there, a lot longer than normal. I was totally drained, by the way. I was so drained. But I stood there and kept the calm, and the woman didn't. She wanted to know who the hell are you? She was not in a good mood, but I knew she probably needed to go get x-rays, and the husband looked at me several times, and he was like, thank you for staying. And all I did was just basically stand there and just remind them whenever they tried to move or whatever to not do that. It's going to be fine. Talk in a calm voice. So yes, so my INFP-ness, I don't have that conflict anymore. I have drained off, I hate to use the word kill, that's in this day and age particularly, but it has diminished. The other person that I was fighting with, I realized, was the person that was okay in society, has drained, the air is out of the balloon of that, the helium is out of that body, it's dissolved, and my INFP is coming out, and I'm a whole lot more confident and content than I've ever been, and I didn't think twice about going and helping them. And all I did was just stand there and be the calm in that chaos. That was a tornado in there. That was an emotional tornado I put myself in. And like I said, I had to come home and take a nap, or I was going to collapse. It was way too much energy for me. So yes, this has gone on a lot longer than I wanted it to, but I wanted to explain it, and wanted to do right by it. This was a request. So what do you guys think? Do you ever feel like you're fighting with yourself? Is there another personality fighting with you? What do you think about my take on it? Is that it's the outside world personality fighting with your INFP that you stuffed down, trying to come out. And once it does come out, I would say the calm will be there. It may take a lifetime. You may not ever get there. If you fight it, you're not going to get there. Go with it. Sit with it. That's what we say about feelings. Sit with it. Allow it. Speak to it. Let it speak to you. Listen. Sit with it. And then that fight eventually will dissipate. And it's very common to happen when you're younger, and that's a good sign. It's a sign of growth, sign of progress, and a sign of being healthy. So that's all I'm going to say. I've said a whole lot. This is a very long video. I hope you stayed with me. If you have comments, comment below what you think. Like, unlike, thumbs down. It doesn't matter. I get a kick out of all of it. I appreciate you. If you have any other suggestions you'd like for me to see my take on it, I'll be glad to talk about it. And until next time, stay safe.